somebody knows something. I refuse to believe that it's been over 8,000 days and we have no answers. Madeleine McCann, you've either seen her face, know her name, or both. She's from the UK, but she disappeared in 2007 when she was on vacation in Portugal with her family. This is up there with JonBenet Ramsey, one of the biggest missing people cases ever. It's so big, and it's so big, I think, because it's still a mystery. Madeleine was the oldest of 3 kids to parents Kate and Jerry. She was only 3 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was just a baby, and she had 2 younger siblings that were twins. Both Kate and Jerry were practicing physicians that were doctors. Kate graduated with a degree in medicine, and Jerry had obtained his MD and was a consultant cardiologist, I believe, at the time. April 28th, 2007, the McCann family leave the UK and go on holiday to, I believe you pronounce it, Praia da Luz in southern Portugal. They're going to be staying at the Luz Ocean Club for 7 nights with some of their friends and their children. The resort they stayed at sounds sort of like a timeshare place. It's also commonly referred to as Little Britain because so many British people either owned property there or would often vacation there. From what I gathered, it's like condos or apartments that you can rent, so each family stayed in one, all pretty much right by each other. McCann family stayed in 5A. 5A was a 2-bedroom apartment, so the parents were staying in one bedroom, the kids in the other. It was ground floor, and there was obviously a front door, but also a back door. The back door was one of those sliding glass doors. It was overlooking the pool, tennis courts, restaurant, and the bar. May 3rd, 2007, it was a Thursday. Regular day, the kids spent the day at the kids club. They ate lunch, headed to the pool in the afternoon. While at the pool at 2:29 p.m., the mother, Kate, took a picture of Madeleine sitting next to her dad and her siblings. That would be the last known photograph taken of Madeleine. That night, she would disappear, never to be seen again. At night, the night of the 3rd, the parents had dinner plans to go to the Tapas restaurant. It's like a restaurant slash bar. That same restaurant that you could see from the sliding back door of the McCann's apartment. So you have the restaurant, the pool, and then the apartments on the other side. From the restaurant, you could see the building of the apartments, but you couldn't see the doors. This was a little routine the parents had worked out. Everyone would put the kids to bed in their own apartments, leave them sleeping, and then they would meet up at the restaurant, and they would do sort of like a rotation. The parents, each 30 minutes, someone would go check on the kids. This comes up again later, but because this was the plan basically every night, resort staff had a note asking that that same table be reserved for the families every night, and in the note, it did say that the kids were back at the apartments left alone sleeping. At 8:35 p.m., Jerry and Kate, the McCanns, go to the restaurant to meet up with their friends. Madeleine and the twins are left behind in the apartment sleeping. When it was time to check on the kids, they would go in through the back sliding glass door. Because of that, they left the back door unlocked because it could only be locked from the inside. They didn't want to use the front door because the lock of it was really loud, and they didn't want to risk waking up the kids every time they unlocked it and locked it back up. At 8:55 p.m., one of the adults at dinner, Matt, goes to check on the kids. All is good. At 9:05, Madeleine's dad, Jerry, goes to check on the kids. When he does, he notices that the bedroom door where the kids are sleeping is a little bit more open that he remembers leaving it. But he looks in, all 3 kids are sleeping, all is good. He goes back to the restaurant. On the walk back, he crossed paths with one of their friends, Jane Tanner. Jane was walking to go check on her kids, and she sees Jerry, but Jerry does not see her because he was talking to some other friend he ran into. On Jane's walk back to the restaurant, she sees a man carrying a small child in his arms. The child was wearing pajamas, but again, they're at a resort where families with kids are staying. She just kind of assumed that it was a dad carrying their child. At 9:30, one of their friends, Matthew, goes to check on all of the kids, including Madeleine and the twins. When he goes into the McCann's apartment, he notices that it's really quiet, but he just takes a peep into the bedroom. He saw the twins sleeping, but he can't remember if he saw Madeleine or not. 30 minutes later, at 10 p.m., Kate, Madeleine's mom, goes to check on her kids. When she reaches for the bedroom door, she notices that it kind of slammed shut, almost as if there was a drift of air forcing it shut. She opens the door and notices that the window was left open. I accidentally deleted the clip that said this, but at this point is when she realizes that Madeleine is missing. She is not in the bedroom, but the twins still are. She immediately leaves the apartment, leaving the twins sleeping in their beds, and runs back to the restaurant. And what she says when she gets back to the restaurant is they've taken Madeleine. She doesn't say Madeleine is gone, Madeleine is missing. She says they've taken her, which is obviously one of the main things people talk about. Why would you say they've taken her instead of she's gone or she's not in her bed? And if you really thought that someone took her, why would you leave your 2 other babies alone in that same apartment? That's my biggest question mark in this whole thing. At that point is when Jane, the friend, fills them in and says that on her walk back to the restaurant, she saw a man carrying a child. At 10:15, the police are called. By 10:30, they arrive. Jerry and Kate, Madeleine's parents, do a public appeal for anyone that may have seen anything or knows anything to please come forward. Grandparents also fly in from the UK to help support the family. There are photos of Madeleine being handed out left and right. The police are searching. There's a ton of volunteers searching. Everyone's trying to do everything they can to help, but it's a difficult one because they're not home. Madeleine was presumably taken from a resort. Most people there are on vacation, so there's so many people just going in and out. It's hard to question everyone. That being said, also because it was a resort and it wasn't their home, so many people are walking around, especially with all of the commotion of a child being reported missing, making the idea of getting any sort of DNA evidence pretty much impossible. A couple comes forward and reports seeing a man carrying around a little blonde girl around 10 p.m. They describe the man to the police, and they come up with 2 sketches of what the man may look like. The police also released a sketch they came up with using the description Jane Tanner gave of the man that she saw saw carrying a small child. Officers bring in forensic dogs that can sniff out human remains. Dogs alerted to 3 different spots. 1 was behind the bed, 2 was inside of the parents' closet, and 3rd was in the trunk of the back of the car of their rental car. However, I read somewhere, I can't find it, but I believe they did not rent out that car until after Madeleine was already missing. The cops were looking into the parents, which I think is common. They were suspects at one point, but they were eventually cleared in July 2008. The parents were being criticized and judged by the public so much. They were getting so much hate, really, for doing the wrong thing, for leaving the children sleeping, for leaving the door unlocked. They were also heavily criticized because of the way they were acting. Their body language in interviews and public appeals were something that the public was really paying attention to. People said they were not acting like grieving parents, and that if you were a grieving parent, you would act a certain way. But really, do you know how you would act if you've never been in that position? I don't know. We're gonna get into theories and things that have been heavily talked about since then, but over the years, there have been so many suspects and so many people of interest that have been questioned and cleared. In 2020, there was a man formally named prime suspect for the abduction and murder of Madeleine McCann. That was 43-year-old Christian Brunker. He's currently in prison serving time for other charges, but there has been no actual charges made in connection to Madeleine. In 2023, a 21-year-old woman named Julia Wendell went viral for claiming that she had proof to show that she is Madeleine McCann. She made up lies saying that she spoke to Kate. She even went on Dr. Phil. Eventually, there was a DNA test and it confirmed that she is not Madeleine. Getting into theories, and I'm so curious to know what you guys think. The main theory, or a really big one, was that Madeleine was accidentally killed inside of the apartments and her parents tried to cover it up. A lot of people believe that the parents gave the kids some sort of medication to try and keep them asleep while they were at dinner. And it's been theorized that they accidentally gave Madeleine too much, and that's the reason why she died. I personally don't know if I believe that, just because the parents were doctors. It's hard for me to believe that they accidentally gave their 3-year-old daughter a lethal dose. However, a lot of people do believe that, and they think that the parents covered it up because they were scared to lose their medical license. Another point that's often talked about is that the morning of the disappearance, at breakfast, Madeleine asked her parents, "Why didn't you come last night when we were crying?" It's been said that since then, that has made Kate and Jerry wonder if they were crying the night prior because maybe someone had already tried to enter the apartment, or if they were just crying because they were alone and scared, and maybe the night that she went missing, Madeleine was scared again and she went out to try and go look for her parents. Maybe she snuck out on her own and then she was taken after that. I don't know. So many unanswered questions. It's actually insane. Another point people bring up is that someone saw the note the reception had stating that the parents were planning on having dinner that night and that their kids were going to be back at their apartment sleeping. Maybe someone knew that they were alone, the kids were left alone while the parents were having dinner, and they snuck in and grabbed Madeleine. Who knows? And it's that, like, it's so frustrating that we have no idea. And there is the Pizzagate theory. The Pizzagate theory is a conspiracy theory that became really popular during 2016 during an election. It's basically believed that members from political parties are doing sketchy things involving illegal activities, and they use pizza words as their code words. This got looped into this case because John and Tony Podesta look almost identical to the sketches the police made of the man that was seen described to be holding a small child. However, John and Tony are 2 different people and the sketches are of the same person. I don't know. That's also, like everything else in this case, alleged, and these are simply speculations people have made. There is a documentary about this on Netflix. I think it might be 8 episodes if I'm not mistaken, but the McCann family wanted absolutely nothing to do with the documentary, refused to take any part in it, and they also suggested that other people don't watch it. I have no idea what I believe. I feel like there's still new information coming out about this case, and the whole thing is just absurd. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. I bet a lot of you have different opinions and thoughts on this, so I'm excited to read your comments. Yeah, that's all from me today. I love you all so much. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.